the girls that want to cook and clean, and people don't do things the way that our grandmothers used to do it. And someone responded and was like, well, that's because our grandmothers pulled us to the side and said,
don't do
what you want, focus on your hopes and dreams, don't do what I'm doing.
Okay.
Raise a glass to the past, present, and future you with actress Danielle Mone Truitt as she dives into the beautiful complexities of life's journey through real, transparent conversation. All the women I've been.
Welcome back to another episode of All the Women I've Been. I'm Danielle Mone Truitt, if you don't know me. But hopefully you've tuned in before and seen some of our incredible conversations that we've had. Today's conversation is really special. I have beauty influencer, actress, and model Dash, and she has a very interesting life journey. And we get into a lot of topics that I think are going to resonate with a lot of you ladies. So tune in, All the Women I've Been. Dash, hello.
Hi,
Thank you so much for joining
Thank
me.
you for having
I'm
me.
so
I'm happy
happy
to
to
be
meet you, number one.
Likewise.
When I was introduced to who you are and your Instagram and stuff like that, I was very kind of taken by the little that I know about your message, and that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast to learn more about, who you are, and I want to say what you stand for, but, just what you're putting out into the world to inspire and encourage women. This podcast is called All the Women I've Been, and just from the little that I picked up, it seems like there's been some, season shifts and transitions in your life. And so I definitely want to talk about that. So the thing that I saw first when I went to your Instagram, besides how gorgeous you are, it's just
Thank you.
beautiful.
You're stunning.
Thank you. Is that you do this thing called Fresh Cut Fridays.
Yes.
So I would love for you to just talk a little bit about what that is and how you were inspired to do that.
Fresh Cut Friday, it's been my lifestyle for the past 5 years to just kind of ritualistically shave my head and do the whole thing. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel empowered and all the things. And I wanted to share that. I didn't know that it would translate visually to some people.
Yeah.
But I've been in the beauty space for about 10 years now on socials, and I wanted to connect on a deeper level when it came to beauty. You're not always going to feel like your best self and like you want to show face. Sometimes you don't even want to look in a mirror.
Right.
And being a beauty creator, it forces you to look in a mirror every day.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of shift that narrative a little bit, but I didn't know how. So it just felt natural to me in a moment where I didn't know what to create to just film this part of my lifestyle. And it opened up a conversation that I had opened up previously, but never to this capacity with showcasing the visual and the process. It opened up a conversation not just with women but with men too about self-care and what that means, about detachment and what that means.
Love it.
And it just opened up a whole other world of opportunity but also perspective that I think is very valuable.
Right. I love the idea of detachment. I think over the last probably 10 years of my life, or maybe 12 years of my life, I've been learning how to detach from outcomes and, things. And I think for me, it started with my career, being an actress. 12 years ago, I was not where I am today. I was depressed, unemployed, kind of a more of a starving, artist, just trying to figure it out. At that time, I was married. I think I had a 1-year-old. My son is 13 now.
Oh, yeah, 13-year-old.
Yeah, I have a 10-year-old too.
You look great.
Thank you. But yeah, I was trying to figure out who am I, being a new mom and being a wife, and as time went on, I began to find that I was very much attached to the outcomes of things. If I went and auditioned, for a movie, a play, TV show, and I didn't get a call back, I made it mean something about me, about my talent, about how I looked, I made it mean something about me being black or, whatever it might be. I think that it's a natural response and a way to protect yourself.
1,000%.
I think it has a lot to do with the ego, and people talk about ego in a negative way a lot. And and sometimes the ego it really is a good thing because it helps to protect you, you know.
Yes, it does.
But the older that I'm getting, the more I'm maturing, and the more that I'm practicing detachment, the happier I am.
Same.
Because I'm not making I'm trying not to make anything that I have, that I've accomplished, mean something about my value, you know? And I think what you're doing is very important, because it's teaching people to value themselves outside of the media and what the world says we should be, or, you know, whatever. So how did you, like, what made you cut your hair?
Oh, man. I mean, to your point, though, it is very important to detach from what we do as an identity. That's also part of the reason why I was struggling to find out what to post next, because I was the beauty girl, the makeup girl. Like, that was all I knew how to be.
Right.
And so showing up in a different way was a risk, but it showed me that you have to take those risks and step outside of your comfort zone so that you don't box yourself into those things.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're meant to evolve. We're meant to step outside the box. It's the only way we're going to remain stimulated, happy, inspired, you know? But what made me cut my hair was that feeling of, I had a very fleeting relationship with my hair. Like, I wasn't married to it. I never identified with it. I had a very nice curl pattern that was considered good hair. It was not a rhetoric I really identified with. Most of the women in my family had 4C hair texture, and you know, being in the salon, I could still smell relaxer. You know, it's like ingrained in my memory. So I'm just like, that just never resonated with me, and I just knew that there was more to me than the hair. There's more to us than any physicality, to be very honest.
Exterior,
And so it was just a personal thing that I wanted to try to see how I would feel. I wanted to feel something different. At the time, a lot of the Pixie girls were like, you know, having a moment. I remember Orange is the New Black was a big show when I decided to cut my hair. And Ruby Rose was a new character on there. She was this androgynous bad bitch that everybody was like, oh, I don't know if I want to be you or be in you.
Right. But I like you.
But I was like, oh, a woman can emit this energy and this empowerment like that. I want to do that. Also, Empire was a big show at the time. And Grace Byers, who I love so much. Boo Boo
You
Kitty.
kind of look like her a little.
Thank you. I get that often. I can't wait for Harlem. But she had this cut too, and she made it so feminine. Where in contrast, Ruby made it a little bit more androgynous. You know, Grace made it so feminine. I was like, oh, you don't need that to like pop a shoulder and feel good. And so it was just a fleeting choice that I decided to make when I finally turned 18 and I had the autonomy to do so. I was like, you can't tell me what to do. And from there, it just became this like, it unlocked a whole world of self-exploration. And I was met with some resistance from people close to me.
Was it was it mostly your family?
It was absolutely mostly my family, because, you know, la niña con el pelo bueno, like the girl with the good hair, all of a sudden just chops it off, and we're sitting here trying to do everything we can to get that hair texture. And
like,
I'm
how
like,
dare you, right?
This is what I want you to unlearn.
And
while that wasn't maybe the immediate thought process then, as I've grown up, I look back and I'm like, I realize the way that like the women in my family have now embraced their natural hair texture. They're no longer like, my mom has even gone bald a couple times and done the big chop and restarted. Like, I'm not going to take responsibility for that, but I'm just saying, like, there's something to be said for taking a step that not a lot of people are comfortable with. Because it kind of makes them feel like, oh, I can do this too. This is okay. This doesn't define me. You know? So.
Women of color, I think, do have a very special relationship with their hair, and I think a lot of times it's rooted in just all the pushback and the ways that the world has made us feel like our hair textures are difficult, you know, hard to manage, that straight hair is better, or a finer hair is better hair, this good hair, bad hair, you know, type of thing, nappy hair, whatever. That white hair or the whiter European look is more beautiful. The thing for women of color to realize, and you know, India Arie said it a long time ago, like, I'm not my hair, you know, I'm not defined by that. But in this world, it ends up being something, you know, you're looked at a certain way. A lot of us can't even wear our hair certain ways in the workplace, in certain styles. And even me being on television, there's always a constant conversation that my white counterparts are not having to have when it comes down to how I'm going to wear my hair. There's all this fear about, well, we don't want anything, you know, too flashy. We don't want anything that's making a statement, you know?
Yeah.
White people wear their hair however they want, and they're not making a statement unless they have some kind of mohawk or color
Right.
or whatever. But for us, you know, me having, if I wanted to lock my hair, that's a statement, you know? It's not just
You gotta
a
run
way.
it through all these people, and it's like,
You have to get approval upon approval upon
Insane.
approval. And it wears at your mental health.
1,000%.
You know, it
Yeah.
really does. So I think you letting go of, you know, you deciding like, yeah, no, I don't have alopecia. No, I don't, there's no medical, you know, issue that I'm having that's like making me shave my head or cut my hair short. It's just my own autonomy and
Literally.
the fact that it's what I want to do. Now, what have you got any backlash from like just social media, people, you know, in your comments, you know, saying anything, or has it just been very positive?
I mean, it's social media. You know, when you open yourself up to things, and when things go viral, I get scared because I'm like, oh, this is gonna reach the wrong side of the internet. You know,
Right.
People are gonna have opinions. People are gonna impose those opinions on you. People are gonna try to. Whatever. I always say, imagine typing out a paragraph this long and then I block you. That's embarrassing.
Okay.
People have thrown Bible verses at me. The one that they love to throw
your
out.
crown.
Something about a woman's hair is her glory.
Yeah.
You know, if you lose your hair, you lose all of whatever. And it's generated a conversation. Funny enough, when I share that people throw those Bible verses at me, then, you know, people come in and they're like, I'm so sorry that this person is using this as a means to project whatever they're, you know, weaponizing the Bible against you and this and the third. That's not what that verse means. And people are very graceful. People show love. And at the end of the day, like I do it for myself, but what I pay most attention to is like who is vibing, who's feeling good about it, who has a question that I can maybe, you know, offer a response that may help them out in their journey. Like that's what I'm more focused on.
Yeah.
The noise is difficult to sometimes drown out. All I can do is like block and delete and block and delete.
Not
as much
read
as I can.
everything or whatever.
You know, but you still have to see it before you do that. And a lot of it comes from men. One of the posts that I got the most scrutiny for that has been reposted, so I'm just getting scrutiny from all angles, was where I said that the ways in which it's affected my dating life. I mean, for anybody, if you walk in your truth, you walk in your power. Yeah. You know, you're going to attract those men for you, and I firmly believe that, and I have, or whatever. But when it comes to just like what people see, you know, they're like, well, you're not going to attract what you think, you know, you're going to attract. Men have standards, men have this, men have that. So when I opened up about how with some encounters with men, it's been brought up that that's just, you know,
they can't date a woman that's
they
bald.
just want someone that, you know, and I don't mean to say like everyone wants it, but based on the general consensus, the same way that we sit here and we talk about our standards and stuff, and we're like, you know, well, I want a man that has this, that, and the third. Men also do the same thing for women. The only thing is that I don't think they realize that when these things are rooted in these physicalities, like the conversation goes so much deeper than just preference, you know? Yes. Because you can marry a woman with a beautiful head of hair today.
And
God
she
forbid
might
something
lose it.
happens and she loses it, then
what?
Is she loses? Has she lost her glory there? Is she no longer worthy of being a wife? So the conversation goes that deep, but not a lot of people are, you know, have the capacity to understand it to that level of depth.
And if I have short hair and that's not what you're into, then I'm not what you're into, and that's fine. But you don't have to make me feel like I'm less than because I don't have what you're not into, because you might not have what I'm into.
And the crazy
and I
thing
should
about
make you feel less than for it. You
the
know?
crazy thing about it is too that people will then turn it around and be like, well, women don't like bald men, and I'm like,
a lot of women like bald men.
a lot of
I have no
bald
problem
man
with
with a beard.
I have no problem with it. No problem with it at all.
But it's, you know, it becomes a conversation of man versus woman, and that's never what it was supposed to be either.
Absolutely.
You know?
And there's a lot of that on social media
there is a lot
these
of
days. Yeah, it's
And
just a lot of judgment, a lack of compassion, and a lot of just I don't know. I think it probably is partly because people don't talk in person anymore.
Yeah, no.
You know. So they just get to sit back and, you know, judge what you look like or whatever and make it mean something. And also it's like, who said that you're anybody that I would want to
You know,
deal
because
with?
it always be the one that looks a little crazy. That'd be like, this looks terrible. I would never date a woman with hair. And I'm like,
I
well,
would
who
never
would
date you. And I would never date you, so it's totally fine.
Yeah, but it's that kind of like scrutiny. It's all surface level. It's all like very vain almost, and it's all just worried on the very mundane thing that is like physical attraction, and you know, you get to a point in life where you realize that like love is so much more than just a physical attraction.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think once I reached that point, I stopped thinking a long time ago about what I look like to people. I feel good, great. That'll resonate with somebody.
It's how you feel.
Literally.
Now, when you cut your hair off, did you have a moment where you're like, oh my God, like I never realized what my face looked like?
Yes.
Okay, how was that? Like,
I have those moments every time that I cut my hair. I'm like, I can't believe there was a time that I would sit here 3 hours on a Sunday before the school week, because I cut my hair when I was 18. So right after graduation is when I got rid of it. But I would sit here every Sunday, waste half of my day in the portable at-home dryers that take like 4 hours to dry, doing your curl pattern. Then the flat iron. Then that wasn't enough. You had to blow so many things, and I'm just like, this is. And there's another narrative going around about, oh, you have to be so rich to get a haircut. It's so high maintenance. I'm like, a 15-minute haircut in your bathroom.
First of all, you can teach yourself how to cut your hair.
Is never going to be as time consuming
as going
and
to
as
the
much
shop.
of an arm workout as all it is.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
It's not.
And to each their own. I'm not, you know, but for me, that's just not my process. It's not what I like. It's not what I resonate with.
Yeah.
I never had that moment of like, oh my God, what the hell did I do? It was just like a newfound appreciation for myself and different, you know, like appreciation for my ears, appreciation for my shoulders, appreciation for like just the little things that people don't look at, things that you don't look at. And I'm like, like there's so many parts that make me, you know, and I want to celebrate that.
I love
and so
that.
it's just increasingly become just a celebration of self, you know. That's
really awesome. I love that. I love the community that you're building and the encouragement that you're giving to so many women. I mean, because like I said, it really is a thing. Like I have friends who, they never wear their own hair because they're so unhappy with it. So they they wear a wig all the time, you know, and it's like, they don't feel like, you know, it's like, oh, I don't have edges, or, you know, there's no, they don't really know how to embrace, you know, it's hard. Like if you've lost hair, or if you know, if you don't have a curl pattern that is easy to, you know, manipulate, you know, some people just don't know what to do. So seeing someone just like kind of take the power in their own hands and say like, this is how I'm going to show up in the world, and I'm okay with that, you know, is a really cool thing. Now, are there men that are like, whoa, like you're gorgeous, like you know, I mean, I'm sure, but you know, like I know for instance, you know, when I wear my hair natural with my little curls, I always get the guy that's like, hey, soul sister, like, oh, your natural hair, you know, or whatever. It's so beautiful, the curls or whatever. So I'm assuming there are men out there that are like, love that silky, shiny, bald head, you know.
1,000%. And when I talk about like, you know, like dating experiences, I usually talk about them like early on, things that I've learned early on, because I'm pretty solid in who I am. But like, you know, in the beginning, and I think people take that as me saying like, oh, it's just been terrible. No, like I don't date by choice often because it's just not my favorite thing. But people, like men love it, you know, and men appreciate a woman that, you know, walks in her power. A secure man definitely appreciates a woman that walks in her power, knows who she is. I'll be walking in the street, and it's gonna be like, I like your haircut. And I'm like, thank you. And, you know, it can be very endearing in that way. So, and to me, that just, it amplifies just like being aware of people that see that. Because if someone sees that in you, if someone is not being outwardly like judgmental, then that says something about them.
It does.
You know? So
now, why don't you enjoy dating?
It's just not my favorite thing.
Has it always been that way?
Man, dating in New York is a psychological warfare.
Girl, I agree, because I had about 2 years of maybe a year and a half of dating in New York, and I was like, wow. After being married for 12 years, it was extra weird, you know. And I feel like I've met kind of the whole gamut of it. But talk to me a little bit about maybe some of your experiences and why you choose to just be like,
I mean, I think right now in this phase of my life, it just comes down to, I mean, I'm 28 now, so frontal lobe is developed or whatever. But it wasn't in my early 20s. And so as a result, you know, I grew up very sheltered in my family home, wasn't really allowed to do much. And when I got introduced to the world through like work in retail and all that stuff, I just realized that I really centralized love in a way that was not very realistic in my life. You know, I also maybe didn't have the best examples of, love and a healthy love growing up. And so for me, that made me look for love in all the wrong places, and that made me just, give too much of my heart to people that maybe didn't deserve it. Yeah. So now, I guess I wouldn't say that I don't like, who doesn't like a good wine and dine? But like, I'm a lot more intentional about who I'm sharing I'm just intentional about who I'm keeping as a friend these days, So I'm very intentional about the people that I'm spending time with, people I get to know, people that I let in such a personal way. I've just become a lot more sensitive to energies and soul ties and what that means. Yes. And all of that has made me just, raise that standard, the parameters by which I measure, like, who can come into my life. Yeah. It's very much been set by, like, the people that are already in my life, like my lifelong friends and even my family. Like, this is the love that I feel, and it's so pure and it's so empowering and uplifting. Yeah. It's like, if you don't bring that, I can't. You can't be a part of my life. I'm not going to be invested, Yeah. And I've given my love to some people that maybe didn't deserve it and didn't know what to do with it. One of my experiences dating really, really kind of broke my spirit in a way, like mentally, emotionally, and it's so interesting. Sometimes you don't see things for what they are when they're happening, and other people kind of see them before you. Oh my God, and it just goes to show, like, it's not about being dumb. It's not about any of these things. It's just nobody's exempt from feeling. And when you're in such a vulnerable place like that, you don't realize sometimes that someone's not appreciative of that vulnerability, and doesn't know how to handle it in a delicate way, So that unfortunately made me fall into some heartbreak and some things that kind of took me away from myself for a little bit. Yeah. So after you go through something like that, you don't, it takes you a minute to kind of dip your toes back in. You're not as quick to jump out there again. Exactly. But I think the beautiful thing as we as women get older and we actually learn from, I don't even call it the mistakes. They're just learning experiences. That things you have to go through sometimes to be refined, you know? When you go through the fire emotionally, and you've been through some things, you've seen some things, it allows you to start your growth process, once again from once you break away from that, from a place where it's like, okay, I've been purified through the fire that I've gone through, and now I can do things differently. And what you said about the development of the frontal lobe. It's real. Oh, it's real. And that's why I say, do not get married until you are in your 30s. No, I got married at 26. I should not have gotten married at that age. Like, I had not lived enough life at that point. And I didn't have my first child till I was 30, but I shouldn't have got married until I was in my 30s. It's like, we have there's so much to experience in this life, and sometimes we try to rush it. Yeah. Before it's time, and a lot of times we end up sometimes going through things that we don't necessarily, that we don't necessarily have to go through, So I think you're very smart for, how you're choosing. I think the thing I'm getting most from talking to you is that you empower yourself in every single area of your life. And there's a quote that says, how you do one thing is how you do everything, So it doesn't surprise me that a woman who would cut off her hair just because she wants to would also be like, you know what, I'm going to take my time, and I'm going to be very specific about who I let, in my world. Taking those kind of precautions, having boundaries, especially when you grow up in a family where there's no boundaries or you didn't learn boundaries, it's like you have to practice it, 1,000%. It's not something that comes natural all the time. Yeah. And I don't think we should put ourselves down for the fact that it doesn't come natural. It's like it's something you have to teach yourself. And there's going to be times when you're like, oh shoot, like I kind of slipped, back, or I kind of allowed this person to come in. And it's not about keeping people out either. Yeah. I think that's one thing that people have to realize about boundaries. Really. It's about balance. Boundaries. Yeah. It's not about keeping people out. It's about just being selective. Absolutely. You can give a hand without giving your whole arm. Exactly. And it took me a long time to learn that. I'm still learning it, I'm 43 years old. And I'm finally kind of getting to a place where I'm like, okay, I understand how to show love to someone, but you're not
you got to still stay over there.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. Yeah,
it's hard.
I had to learn the hard way. When people show you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
And I'm someone who, by nature, wants to find the good in everyone.
Me too.
You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, to a detriment. I took a personality test and was like, yeah, girl, that's your detriment right there. You gotta be a little tougher.
I know.
So I'm very much about balance and harmony. And so I try to instill that balance and harmony in my life with people. And you can't instill that balance and harmony with everyone.
Yeah.
You just can't. Some people are not built for it.
Yeah.
And I've had to just learn and have my third eye open to the way that people project. Because I know how I project. My misery don't like company. I like to isolate. And so when someone is so loud about, things that I may be a little bit more retreated about, and they kind of expect you to expect their issues to become so all-encompassing in your life, that to me immediately is a red flag. Because what I notice in dating patterns is just kind of losing myself a little bit in what you think love is as a woman. They teach you that, in order to get married and love, you become Mrs. the name of your husband, and it's just all of your identity goes to that,
Yes.
And that don't really resonate with that.
No.
And so I did towards, the last relationship that I've ever had, I started to enforce this thought process where it's like, well, no, I'm my own person still. And you are your own person still as well. We're growing towards something. And that's what's kind of spooked me from dating, is that I'm okay with that gradual process. I wasn't in my early 20s. There was a lot of that rushing. There was a lot of that, no, I have to get married by 30. I have to have the kid. I have to do the things. Like my mom had a baby by the time what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The house, all the things. But when I came into a space where I was like, I can enjoy a relationship, but also still find myself and do all the things.
Yes.
You can't do that with everybody, because some people just want to come into your life to just take and take and take.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is the way society and religion have set up relationships between men and women.
Yep.
And I think a lot of times guys want you to be their trophy.
Yes.
They don't want you to actually be a living, moving, breathing person with opinions and thoughts and advice and autonomy. They don't, I don't think they realize it though. I don't think they're purposely setting out to stifle you, or I think the brilliance that you have and the confidence that you have, the sexiness that you carry, the grace, all of that the things that we carry as women, they're attracted to it. They love it. They love it. That's why they want to be with you. But then when they get you, it's intimidating, or it's intimidating for them, because they're like, well, I don't want anybody else to have it. I just want it for myself, and I don't want anybody else to see what I saw. So let me change her into what I want her to be for my own comfort and to maybe stifle my own insecurity. Mm-hmm. And that's what I learned in a lot of relationships that I've been in. From when they see me and they talk to me and they're getting to know me, they're enamored with, who I am, how I move, and, what I do for a living. And, now that I have kids, me as a mom, and there's all these things, they're like, oh my God, she's so great. And then when they get to know me and they realize oh, she's really opinionated. Oh, she's very independent. It's like, oh, wait, and then even when I was married, like I said, it was more of a trophy. I felt like more of a trophy. And we all know with trophies, if I were to win an Oscar or an Emmy, I can't wait until I win an Emmy or win an Oscar. I'm gonna be excited. I'm gonna be up there crying like Halle Berry and the rest of them. I got my speech ready. Okay.
Yeah.
But
you probably had that speech ready since you were a kid.
I've had my speech ready. Okay, I've had it ready. I kind of every once in a while I go in and kind of edit it, and say, as I evolve, there's more that I add to it. But that trophy has a lot of weight to it. It means something about you. People can be attached to these awards and these accolades, and it's like, I am now an Emmy award-winning actress. It means something about me. And I think with men, they're like, I have this wife, and it means something about my manhood that I, have a wife, and I'm a husband, and I'm the leader of my family, and But what happens is they treat their wives just like that trophy. What happens with the trophy is you take it home, you set it on the shelf, and it collects dust. And every once in a while, you go back to your shelf, and when you want to admire it, you're like, oh my God, I remember when I
won that.
Oh my God, I won that. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, so pretty, I won that. Oh, it's a little dust on it. Let me just, dust it off. And people come over and you're like, look at my Emmy, and you want to hold it, you want to take a picture with it, or, and then you set it back on the shelf, and then you go off and do something else, and then you end up winning an Oscar. And then you forget about the Emmy that was on the shelf, So I understand that a lot of men are very ambitious, and I love that about men, and they're always going for more and more and more. But I feel like when you have a partner, if you are dealing with a woman and she is your partner, then there has to be room for her to evolve.
1,000%.
Just
and
like
no objectification at all, by any means. Like, not even a degree of it.
No.
Like, there needs to be a level of respect, to your point, that needs to be, vice versa. Because what happens with that, too, is that you lose yourself. And it's, I think, one of my fears around marriage, I'll be very transparent. Losing myself and all of the things that I worked so hard to obtain, to achieve, to work on, as far as, like, who I built myself up to be. Yeah. And then having that all just dissipate gradually because I devoted my life to love. I firmly believe a good love should make you better. I think
it should make you better.
Build you up,
it should make you evolve. It should make you see the world different. It should turn you into a better version of yourself. And I feel like both people should be people that are like, go, do it. If I really love you, going back to detachment, if I really truly love you, then I'm not going to be so attached to you that I'm not going to let you flourish and fly. You know what I mean? I'm going to be encouraging you to flourish and fly because I am confident in the love that we share. I know there was a conversation I had with my ex when we were going through our divorce. We were trying to reconcile. The more that we talked during our separation, I realized I cannot stay married to him and become the woman that I'm supposed to be. And I'm saying it a little bit more articulate than I actually thought it at the time. I just was like, this is not right. I can't stay here. And part of the reason is because he was very much focused on the fact that I should be happy with his accomplishments. That should make me happy enough that he's accomplished this and he's accomplished that. Why am I not happy about, we had a church at the time, and he's like, well, I have the church and I've achieved this and I've achieved that. Like, why is that not enough for you? And I'm like, someone who's married to someone and doesn't understand why just their achievements don't bring their spouse. It brought me joy. I would always tell everybody all the things that my husband was doing, achieving, brag about him all the time. Because that's the type of person I am anyway, with my friends, with my family. If my friend does something awesome, I'm posting about it, I'm talking about it, I'm telling people. That's how I am. So I was always very proud of him. I always supported what he was doing. Every venture he had, I was supporting it. But I had my own dreams. I had my own things that I wanted to accomplish. And in the Bible, it says, a dream deferred makes the heart sick. But a dream fulfilled is a tree of life.
A word.
And if I feel like you're thriving as my partner, but my heart is sick, you telling me that I should be happy with what you've achieved and that should be enough for me.
Yeah, no, that's not going to work out.
That is not speaking.
Because who is Danielle?
Exactly.
You have to have your own achievements, your own identity.
Exactly. That's not speaking to the queen in me, So I think that when people get married, you don't have to lose yourself. When you become a mother, if you become a mother, you don't have to lose yourself. All these are choices that we make. Yes. And that's part of the thing I had to realize when I was going through my divorce, because I did go through a point where I was just like, well, I don't have this, and he wouldn't let me do this, and he wasn't a part, he didn't want me to be his partner, blah, 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 blah. But there were certain things that I chose not to do because I thought it was the wrong thing to do. It was like, well, a wife is supposed to like do what her husband asks her to do, or, not be too vocal, like, which is not my personality, so I was really not being myself, and it was like, I don't have to abandon who I am because I'm a mom, because I'm a wife. My kids have never, ever desired me to do that, nor have they ever asked me to do that. None of our children have ever asked us to give up your whole life for me. This is just something that we decide to do, Now, husbands on the other end, you might have one that,
a lot more needy than the children, huh?
You said what?
I said a lot more needy than the children, huh, the husbands.
Yes, child. Yes. So it's like, it's like you have a choice, What it is you have to know who you're marrying. You have to know yourself. Yes. Before you get married. And I don't think a lot of people are like, oh, you have to be healed for your, I don't think that's the case. But you do need to know yourself. Yes. The core of who you are, you need to know her. Because then you will end up attracting the right person for you. So another thing that I saw on your Instagram was that you briefly shared a little bit about an abusive relationship that you were in. And I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about that experience. What did you learn from that? How did you get out of it? How long did it take you, to get out of it? And we kind of already talked about how you're a little guarded with dating and stuff like that. So I'm assuming it kind of came from having that experience. Yes. But how did that transpire? How old were you?
This was probably about 4 years ago. Okay. And I had just left a relationship that wasn't abusive. I was cheated on, and I just, was moved on. I was trying to move on. Yeah. I was trying to move on and not think about things, not do the healing, right? And then I found myself because I wasn't doing the healing, and I think that was a result of that, in a space where, again, you just don't realize sometimes when someone doesn't have your best interests at heart. You're so blinded by. I was love bombed for the first time in my life. That's
Girl!
What it was. Oh man, love bombing.
That happened to me with the guy that I dated right after my marriage ended. Love bombed.
I was love bombed, and you come out of being cheated on to being love bombed, and it's like, yeah, this is what I deserve. It's about time. Yes, take me here, take me there, all the things. Right. Without realizing that a lot of people, and that's what I learned from that. And I think that's why I'm so weary to dating and people doing too much too fast. Yes. Is because love bombing is used as a means of manipulation, as a means of control. You lure a person in with all of the goods, and then
because there's other deficiencies
once you have them there, because you've already kind of altered chemically their psyche with all these wonderful things you've been doing, and now they believe the best of you. And then
when you get on that bullshit, they're like, but no. He was so this.
Yeah, 1,000%. And then you get to a point where you realize that there is more room for boundaries, that there's more room for certain things, and you start to want to enforce that, and it becomes a disagreement, and then disagreement becomes verbal violence. And thankfully, I was able to. I'm very intuitive, and I pick up on energies. And when I started to pick up that the energy was going to go south, that's when I pulled back. And pulling back was not easy. It was probably one of the hardest things I ever had to do. As someone who is so used to breaking up with somebody and then being like, did they text me? What you doing? What you doing? Like to be in a space where it's like, this doesn't even need closure. I just know it's not healthy, it's not good, it's unsafe for me and the people around me, and I'm not dealing with it anymore. To be able to say, I'm not dealing with this, I think was a turning point for me. Love it. And I think that's why at this point now, I'm just now getting comfortable with talking about it. That was the first time, and I was scared. I was shaking my boots when I was supposed to do that. I felt like I was in that same moment again when I decided to leave, because it felt so unsafe, and I was so scared, and I did not feel safe until I was home. Yeah. I did not feel safe until, it was just a lot, It really made me retreat, and I'm someone who's good for isolation. Yeah. Oh, man, it was easy for me to put myself in a box, not show up in my work, not show up anywhere, because I felt so ashamed of what I had allowed. And then all that thought process of like, well, what if I allowed this to go on further, and I didn't realize. And it took a friend to kind of like ask me, like, sis, blink twice, you okay? And I was like, whatever do you mean? Like,
right.
And it's because they were seeing things before I was even seeing them, you know? I was being bullied. I was being made to feel small. And as someone who is very outgoing and will be outside and feel like this and the third, there was a shift. There was a shift in the way
your
that
light
I felt
wasn't
about
as
myself,
bright.
the way I showed up, the way I dressed even. Like, I went from being love bombed to in a situation where everything that I would wear, the things I would say, the things I would do were being nitpicked. And where the person that was supposed to be my lover was like envious of me and the things I had built and the things that I had. And it was wild because at that point, you know, you don't, you know, in your early 20s, you don't think that highly of yourself. You're like, I'm doing what I can to, you know, keep it pushing, but someone will see a light and try to take it away from you.
Yes, they will.
And man, if you let them, they will.
Yes, they will.
But thankfully, I was able to pick up on the red flags. I have an amazing support system that was like, you don't need to be in no situation you don't want to be in.
Yeah.
You may not fight, but we do.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And so I was like, bet. It was hard. But I think I'm on the other side of it now where, I mean, trauma is trauma, and you're still going to think about it and think of the ways of like, oh, I wish I could have done X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But now I think that it's made me a much more confident woman. My boundaries are very firm. I know who I am.
Yes.
I know what I'm allowing and I know what I'm not allowing. And I think that that's probably the most valuable thing that I could have gotten from that. You know, I don't think that, it's hard to say, but I don't think I would have done things differently because I probably wouldn't be here right now.
No.
You know?
Yeah. I completely resonate with what you're saying. It's hard when you, first of all, when you go from one relationship and then you go into the next relationship without, you know, having
yourself up to
having that time. Yeah. And I get it. I'm a lover girl, so
I've
done it.
Real bad.
And I'm proud of it. I think I did an episode called Lover Girl, and I was like, or you know, about serial monogamy or whatever. And you know, it's the need for companionship and you know, understanding and someone being there is very important to me, but not at the price of my peace, of my
1,000%.
finances, of my my peace, my finances, my well-being, my self-esteem. You know, not gonna let someone come in and kind of take ownership of all the things that I've worked so hard for. And that's not even just material things. That's like what I've worked hard to develop within myself. You know what I mean? And those relationships are hard to get over and get through because, like you said, it does something chemically to you.
Yes.
When someone is doing everything that you've always wanted, you know, and you're like, oh my God, he's so this and that and treats me like this and that. And especially if he has like a different demeanor than the last person that you were with. And but for me, I kind of noticed the same thing. Like after some time, it was like very nitpicky, very, you drive me crazy when you, and I'm like, excuse me?
Yeah. It's like, that was the same tune you were singing. But you know what I learned about that too is the way it affected the one person I did try to like really date. I thought I was gonna call this person my boyfriend or whatever. The one person I tried to date after that all happened, I was having dreams about the situation and they stopped. And then when I started dating again, the dreams are coming back and I'm like, oh, now this is my fears manifesting themselves in the form of these dreams.
Right.
And I realized that I had a big issue with like control, and I mean the slightest bit of control, you know, like there were so many things I just wanted to do on my own, and it was hard for me to date, and I needed to take a step back from it because, you know, at least with men, because I talk a lot about like relationships with men, but I do identify as queer, and that's a newer part of my life that I've been exploring. But as far as like dating men, it has just been so jarring in the sense that, you know, men want a little bit of control, and I'm not giving you none of that control. You know, that's just not where we are. I'm not going to give you that off the bat. You know, I feel like in an effort to, if you want a woman to submit, you know, it needs to feel safe. And I think that's where I'm at right now. Like the general theme of all of the relationships that I have in my life is just like safety.
Now, how is it different dating women? Like with women, is there still not a need for? So
there is definitely a need for that, but I have to say, girl, I'm still thinking about this one shorty that broke my heart. But it's a different kind of heartbreak. It's a different kind of heartbreak. It's a different conversation.
Okay.
It's I feel like, I always joke around and say I feel like a prepubescent boy It's just like going through puberty and like discovering liking girls for the first time, you know what I'm saying? And it's something that I've always known about myself, but it's something that I never felt confident and secure enough to explore until later on in life.
Gotcha. Was that after you cut your hair?
That was after I cut my hair. Okay. That was after I cut my hair. And I knew, like, I'm very open about things. You know, I know that my grandparents may be like, they don't even know what queer means. So, but my mother, who, you know, the first time I ever knew that this was in my heart, I called my mom up immediately and I was like, Mommy, I have to tell you something. She's like, what? And I'm just walking her through how I saw this girl and she made me feel things. And she was very receptive. She was very receptive to what I had to say. And she was like, Mija, come on. Now you're going to do that. And I think her stressor is more like what the family's going to think. But I'm so far beyond that. But in terms of like what that relationship entails, I have to be honest, like it is a little bit more vulnerable. Someone who was, I think it was Jane Fonda, I saw a video where she spoke about relationships between women, relationships between men in general, even friendships are so different because women got to be vulnerable with each other. You know, we open up to each other about real shit that we go through. Right. Whereas with men, it can be very surface level. They can be watching the game and not have a conversation about anything deep at all. Yeah. So the biggest contrast in, you know, romantic relationships and also platonic relationships is that, you know, is that it always feels like a safe, of course, if the person is well-rounded, it feels like a safe space to connect on that deeper level. Absolutely. Whereas with, you know, dating heterosexually, I don't feel like I'm there right now, you know, or like I haven't met that person, and I'm not ruling that out. Right. But as someone who centralized love so much in the early part of her life, as I get older, I've come to terms with the fact that our greatest purpose in life is, you know, probably to love, but not to love at the capacity that I think we've been shown, you know? Our greatest purpose in life is not to get married or even to bear children. Absolutely. It's what fills you, and all of the other things are a byproduct of what fills you. Yeah. And that's how I'm trying to operate that. Yeah. You know? Yeah. It's to actualize the person that you are. Exactly. And discover, for me at least, to discover, number one, what my purpose is here. And I think when you are on the journey of discovery, it doesn't box you in. No, not at all. When you allow yourself to discover all the different parts of yourself and aspects of yourself, then it's like you become fully realized. And there's a lot of people that never have that experience, you know, so congratulations to you for starting that journey so young, because some of us weren't able to do it because we were in our 30s, 40s, you know, just doing it. But the fact that you're only 28 and you're, you know, you're on this journey already. Yeah, I'm looking forward to I can only hope and pray for, you know, like the continued, what's it called? The continued, like, wisdom and just, like, you know, openness to perspective to be able to just carry out these things in the most healthy way possible. And I think a lot of the reason why I'm operating this way now is also because I was raised by my grandparents. And I saw this post on Threads that was like, where are the girls that want to cook and clean and people don't do things the way that our grandmothers used to do it? And someone responded and was like, well, that's because our grandmothers pulled us to the side and said, don't do what you want, focus on your hopes and dreams, don't do what I'm doing. And I'm like, well, you know, I have women in my family that have spoken to me in a very frank way and have pretty much been like, you don't have to do things the way that I'm doing them, you know, and I think that was so valuable. I'm so happy that has been. That is such a good point. Yes. We do not have to do the things the way our mothers and grandmothers did, and they don't want us to. They don't want us to. No, they want us to be better. And it takes and oh my goodness, like my mom and my grandmother are so powerful. They've been and endured through so much in their lives, and to be able to come out on the other side and have the kind of relationship where they tell you, like, I see myself in you and I see where you can be better and where I could have been better, and that's just what I want you to focus on. Like, that's a blessing. Yes. Thank you, Dash. This was an incredible conversation. Thank you. This was wonderful. You're so sweet.